All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for attending our State of Messaging webinar today. My name is Hannah Clendenin, and I manage our virtual events here at Bandwidth, and I'll be your moderator this afternoon. I just want to run through a couple of quick housekeeping items before we begin. All of you that are logged in, your lines are muted to prevent any background noise, so we can't see or hear you, so no worries there. But with that being said, all of our questions will need to be entered in through the Q&A box that's going to be located on your control panel. Don't hesitate to reach out and ask any questions that you have, but we are going to reserve all questions for the end of our session today. You will also receive a recording link of today's webinar in the next few days, so be on the lookout for that. We also have two speakers with us on the webinar today. We're excited to have Duncan Street from Qeepsake, as well as Stephanie Lashley from Bandwidth join us. Duncan is the Chief Operating Officer and co-founder of Qeepsake. It's a platform used by 700,000 families across the US and Canada and to capture and preserve meaningful memories. He oversees their product engineering and customer experience teams at Qeepsake and help deliver elegant and intuitive solutions at scale, and is a passionate practitioner of product-led growth. We also have Stephanie, our Director of Messaging Product Operations Management at Bandwidth. She's responsible for the operational, financial, and strategic management of Bandwidth messaging products. She also leads a team of product managers focused on bringing Bandwidth messaging products to market and operationalizing them. Before she joined Bandwidth, Stephanie managed value-added services, including voice and messaging products at Sprint. Stephanie's career at Sprint spanned over 15 years and included her collaboration with Kansas City startup companies and the creation of Sprint Accelerator. Obviously, our presenters have an incredible amount of experience, so if there's anything that I missed and you'd like to add, either of you, please do so. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Stephanie to get us started. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Anna. Welcome, everyone, to the webinar. I am excited to be here today to talk about messaging and chat with our special guest, Duncan Street. We have a full agenda. In addition to our conversation with Duncan, we'll talk about what's going on with 10DLC. We'll review all of the messaging products in the marketplace. And we'll also talk about the need for data-driven messaging. So full agenda. But before we start, just a little background on Bandwidth. Bandwidth is a CLEC that develops and powers the ability for brands to communicate with their customers. You may not realize it, but odds are that you are using Bandwidth every day without even knowing it. Bandwidth is behind some of the technology that you use every day, like Wish, Zoom, Arlo, Square, just to name a few. We power some of the most well-known brands in the industry, from a text message doctor appointment reminder to getting notified that your dog is getting walked to using Zoom at work. We enable messaging, calling, and voice capabilities to many of the applications that you engage with every day. Bandwidth also acts as a messaging content service provider, which means we work directly with downstream messaging partners like the campaign registry and the mobile carriers to enable application-to-person business messaging. Next slide. So I know we throw around a lot of acronyms like A to P and 10DLC. So I just want to do a little brief definition before we get started. A to P is application to person messaging, and 10DLC is 10-digit long code. So the 10-digit long code product, or 10DLC, has been designed and sanctioned for business messaging. It offers simplicity, stability, deliverability, reliability, and security to businesses and their audiences. 10DLC is the long-awaited, carrier-supported application-to-person messaging product. And as of March 1st, all U.S. major carriers, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, are now live with their 10DLC services. So 2022 is a time of great change for the messaging industry. It's really kind of exciting, everything that's going on. But here's a little background. The US long codes, widely used by businesses in previous years, were only designed for person-to-person communications, meaning they were only designed for that one-to-one messaging. So they have a really low volume throughput, and they lack the desirable security standards that the carriers like. So carriers have always considered business messages sent over the P2P binds to be an unsanctioned route. So for this reason, they were subject to blocking, throttling, and this is one of the reasons why the US carriers have launched their 10DLC products. I know there's a lot of information to navigate, including questions about registration through the campaign registry, questions about surcharges. But if you need any help or additional information, just drop a line on our website. Or if you're an existing customer or partner, just get in touch with your account manager. We're here to help. So I'm really excited to talk to Duncan today, but first I'm going to talk a little bit about messaging. And what better way to start than with a brief history lesson? The messaging industry has really changed in a very short period of time. There have been some major changes over the last 6 years. As I mentioned, the 3 major carriers have all officially launched their 10DLC products. And with that comes new carrier policies, campaign registration, fees, and the addition of A2P messaging guidelines and the CTIA messaging best practices. All of this was implemented to help carriers ensure compliance and to ensure that you, as a consumer, are receiving the messages you want. So this slide just speaks to all of those changes that have taken place over the last 6 years, ending with the launch on March 1st of the 10DLC product by AT&T and T-Mobile. We can go to the next slide. So there's some big numbers on this slide. 119 billion. That's the difference in number of messages sent in 2020 compared to 2019. So in 2020, the total number of business text messages that were sent was 119 billion higher than in 2019. 2.2 trillion is the total number of SMS and MMS messages exchanged in 2020. And then this last number, 28%, reflects the increase in GIFs, memes, videos, and other multimedia messages. So 3 things are really contributing to this messaging volume growth. Businesses are migrating away from email, voice, and push notifications and moving toward using text messaging to reach their customers. I don't think it's any surprise that text messaging engagement is higher than any other communication channel around. No, you can advance to the next slide, Hannah. Thank you. Yeah, so some more numbers on the screen, but basically this just breaks down that text messaging has a 98% open rate and a 36% click-through rate. The average response is this middle number, this 90 seconds. Business messaging is growing. 70% of consumers will message businesses with customer service questions that they would historically use voice or email to reach. 59% will use text messaging to purchase products or services. And 68% of brands say that messaging helps create a better customer experience. Those are some big numbers. So then that takes us to ROI. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. And with this number comes the need for compliance. Why? Well, there are a couple of reasons. The first one being that the messaging product is not currently regulated by the FCC. And because these networks are private, carrier-owned, operated, and managed, carriers have to prove to the FCC that these networks are being kept clean. And if they can't self-regulate, the FCC will have to get involved. I think we can all agree that it's in everyone's best interest to keep messaging unregulated. We all have to make sure that this channel remains desired by both consumers and businesses. If messages don't get delivered, your ROI doesn't get realized and money goes down the drain. So let's talk a little bit about how to stay in compliance and what some messaging best practices are. So there are 4 cornerstones of message deliverability. I don't think this is on a slide. Maybe it should be. So the first one is consent. So the message recipient must opt in or want the message from the sender. The second one is disclosure of messaging frequency. So you have to tell your customers how often you're going to be messaging them. The third is identification of the sender. You have to tell them who you are. And the last is conspicuous opt-out instructions. You have to let the recipient know how they can stop receiving messages if they choose. I think one of the best practices is opt-out should be included in every 5th message. Okay, now we can go forward. So because the carrier networks are private, mobile operators can set their own prices. Verizon was the first carrier to launch their 10DLC product back in 2020. And thus, they were the first to implement a surcharge for 10DLC messages. Fast forward to today, all carriers have launched their 10DLC products and are now charging surcharges. I think it's important to note that for registered traffic, the rates are lower than those for unregistered traffic. The slide kind of breaks down those dates and then also gives you those surcharges that are being charged. Okay, now we'll talk about the 3 messaging products: short code, 10-digit log code, and toll-free. So each product has its own list of benefits, and we'll kind of walk through each. So starting with the messaging product, I think, let's see. Yeah, we can stay on this slide. Okay. Starting with the messaging product that has been around the longest, short code. So basically, short code gives you high throughput and a channel that's reliable, tried and true, and have been pretty much approved by the carriers through a pretty rigorous approval process. So they're trusted, they're short, they're snappy, they're easy to remember, and they traditionally generate pretty high levels of engagement. So I think, if you're looking for a product that helps you gain brand recognition and you're hoping to get high volumes of customer interactions from your messages, then short codes are definitely a good way to go. The second one is toll-free. So toll-free numbers can help maximize your reach, as you can use one number for both US and Canada. Most customers already use toll-free numbers to call companies today, and so they're used to using these numbers to engage in two-way conversations. You can just, use them now to text enable them and use them for SMS and MMS as well. The last one is 10DLC. So if a local presence is important to you, you should consider 10DLC. With these area code specific numbers, you can start two-way conversations and send messages, including images, videos. You can really get your campaigns noticed. With 10DLC, you can also avoid getting caught up in spam filters with carrier campaign registration. All important things when it comes to message sending. Okay, so this slide, I like this slide. This is a breakdown of each product and the different benefits each provide. For example, if you need one number for your business that supports calls and texts, then both 10DLC and toll-free are great choices. But if you need to be absolutely sure that a message reaches its end user, then short code or toll-free are good options. Both support handset delivery receipts. So as a business, you'll know that message reached the sender. Again, if you have any questions about these products, I know this slide has a lot of information, including, cost comparison, don't hesitate to reach out, because we have a lot of people who can help you with that. All right, so everyone agrees, data is king. There's just so much of it. So I thought this was an interesting quote. Basically, it illustrates how valuable data has become. The world's most valuable resource is no longer oil, but data. On average, every human created at least 1.7 megabytes of data per second in 2020. That's a lot of data. Bandwidth knows that data is critical for your business, and it seems to be coming from all directions right now. That's why we've created a product called Insights. And essentially, this is a dashboard that gives you the data to troubleshoot, analyze, and take actions on your messages through Bandwidth. So the next slide just kind of goes into a little bit more detail about the Insights product. Hannah, thanks. So knowing message sending and delivery status in real time, being able to troubleshoot those errors quickly, and having the ability to understand historical trends are no longer nice to haves, but need to haves. So our Insights dashboard allows you to get a detailed view of your messaging performance to help you take actions before problems arise. These are just screenshots of our Insights product. So now it looks like we're going to shift our discussion to the partnership between Bandwidth and Qeepsake. And I'm really excited to talk to Duncan today. As Hannah mentioned, Duncan's the Chief Operating Officer and co-founder of a company called Qeepsake. Qeepsake is a platform used by, 700,000 families across the US and Canada to capture and preserve memories. Duncan oversees product engineering, customer experience, and I was actually introduced to Qeepsake many years ago before I started working at Bandwidth even. I was doing some research for a startup I was working with called Little Hoots, and Qeepsake was one of the companies that we did competitive analysis on. So, Duncan, I'm so glad we could chat today. Qeepsake and Bandwidth have worked together for, almost 2 years now, and we've helped Qeepsake deliver notifications to Qeepsake subscribers. So, Duncan, why don't you tell us a little bit about Qeepsake?
Sounds great. Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Stephanie and Hannah. I'm really excited to be here. Our partnership has been just a tremendous success. And again, I'm Duncan Street. I'm the co-founder of Qeepsake, and we're on a mission to help all kinds of families capture and cherish meaningful memories. Our vision is to really become the home for every family story. Today, you can kind of think of us as a modern day baby book or family album to some extent, but really we're a whole lot more than that. We're 6 years old. We've helped 700,000 families capture their unique story. We're a venture-backed startup. We've gone through the Techstars Accelerator program, and my co-founder, Jeff McNeil, has also pitched the Sharks on Shark Tank several years back. And this last year, in 2021, we've actually been the winner of a number of awards in the parent tech space. So how does Qeepsake utilize SMS messaging? Let me walk you through how our product works in a little bit more detail. So I usually like to start with a little bit of our founding story, actually. My co-founder, Jeff McNeil, at the time, back in late 2015, early 2016, when we got started, had 5 kids under the age of 10. And he and his wife, Stephanie, were just way too busy to fill out a traditional baby book of milestones. Yet they didn't want to forget all these amazing memories they were having with their family. And they had this insight that as busy as they were, they had no trouble keeping up with their text message conversations. So the light bulb kind of went off. And what if there was an intelligent application or service that prompted you to save all the important moments? And what if it was as easy as sending a text message? And frankly, that's really where we got started. And so today you can sign up for Qeepsake on the mobile app or on our website. You'll sign up, you'll create an account, you'll set up a journal for each of your children. And then you'll start to get fun age-based prompts over text message. You can respond back with a text answer, a photo, and all of those responses are automatically organized into digital journals. From there, you can come back to our mobile app and you can embellish your content more. You can create custom milestones. You can edit your photos, build collages, enable family sharing, even add video. But the point is, day by day, entry by entry, your journal is then automatically transformed into a beautiful physical book that you can preview and order to your house with just a few clicks. So that's a little bit of the background of Qeepsake, where we got started, where we are today, and yeah, excited to do a little Q&A here.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm going to ask Duncan a few questions. The first one, Duncan, what is the value of Bandwidth's partnership to Qeepsake?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an amazing partnership, and maybe to sort of anchor us back a couple years ago, we were on 10DLC when it really wasn't a sanctioned A to P pathway. And that was one of our first things. We wanted to switch to a more sanctioned pathway, but we really didn't want to go to shortcode, because the way our product works is we really like to be sort of like a friend in your contact list. So we like to have a 10-digit number. We like to have the look and feel of a normal phone number. And so we weren't really excited about shortcode. And at that time, Bandwidth was one of the innovators in the field who was the first, I think, that we knew of that was enabling toll-free MMS support. So a big part of our use case was we needed to both send and receive MMS messages as people are sending photos in to help build their journals. So, when we found out that Bandwidth was offering toll-free MMS, we really leaned in. It really helped us from the standpoint of not having to manage hundreds and hundreds of phone numbers. So prior to this, we were actually using local numbers for all of our members, but that required us to do a lot of load balancing and a lot of management from customer support. We had to find out what phone number they were on, and if they were having trouble with their account, it was a much more challenging customer support load, having to manage hundreds and hundreds of phone numbers. Additionally, from like a brand standpoint, we really liked being able to have all of our members receive text messages from just one or two numbers. So it was always very clear, who you were getting a message from, and was this in fact Qeepsake? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then again, I think too, we knew that at decent scale, Bandwidth could handle the throughput requirements we needed, even on toll-free MMS. So I think one of the big factor was, Bandwidth innovating in toll-free MMS, and that's what we've been using for the last few years, and it's just been an awesome solution for us. I think the second big reason and why the partnership's been so successful is because we really wanted more reliability and clearer signal on the deliverability status of our messages. So Bandwidth, as a carrier yourselves, sat one level higher up in the ecosystem than our previous provider. And you guys have just such great relationships with downstream carriers and gatekeepers to help resolve any sort of like false spam filtering and whatnot. So we were just able to get much better intelligence in the data with regards to the final deliverability status of our messages. And I can give you kind of an anecdote there. Like, in fact, we send thousands and thousands of unique questions to our members because it's a prompt-based journaling product, right? Mm-hmm. But a lot of times we'll have spam detectors think we're sending out survey research, survey marketing questions. And so, right. Yeah. And so, in the early days, we had a lot of trouble getting some of our questions through. And even as we manage our own content and constantly add questions to our question sets, those would instantly get flagged and get spam and filtered out. And so one of the things that we were so impressed by was how Bandwidth could work and really go to bat for us to the downstream carriers and to the gatekeepers and help get not only our numbers whitelisted, but our content and any deep links and things inside those question prompts so that they wouldn't get picked up by spam filters.
That's great. That's great to hear. Thanks. Okay, what are the trends that you're seeing in the messaging ecosystem, and how are they impacting your business?
Yeah, so I would say, and this one's a little bit more, I think, pertaining to our business as a B2C subscription business with a mobile app. And so I'm curious, Stephanie, to hear if you're seeing this as well with other companies in the space. But I think one big theme from 2021 going into 2022 is this just changing landscape with regards to mobile privacy policies and data attribution, both on iOS and Google. And I think that's what it's done for us, at least, is it's made more of our remarketing efforts, move directly to D2C channels. And I think SMS will continue, direct to consumer channels. And I think SMS will definitely continue to benefit from that. Another big trend, and you touched on this earlier, is that, there's just a more tech savvy consumer. And I think from a technology standpoint, that means a consumer who's accustomed to moving across platforms. So you can, have an engagement that maybe starts in SMS, may get deep linked to a mobile app or a web app, and being able to move through a user experience that is actually through several different platforms consumers are doing that with ease now, and it's very fluid. The other one also too, in our business is from the effects of the pandemic. Obviously, everybody at some point in time who does digital work had to move to a more remote work setting. And I think what that's done is it's sort of made async communication become second nature. Having to do business messaging via Slack or whatnot, it means just having the ability to have conversations asynchronized is much more of a second language. And I think that really helps brands who can offer customer service support through something like text messaging.
Right. I think, we definitely saw an impact to our customers' businesses and or messaging volumes as a result of the pandemic. Like I mentioned, Zoom is one of the platforms that we power, and messaging volumes were going through the roof during the pandemic because we were working really hard to make sure that everybody could stay connected.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it makes a ton of sense. And I think too, from like a user experience perspective, now that everyone is well equipped to handle many different conversation threads asynchronously, it just enables you as a brand to offer that with ease. The other thing I think that the one that we touched on earlier, which is just honestly like a trend in messaging of having a more sanctioned A2P 10 DLC pathway is super cool. I don't know if we'll use it ourselves. We're just really happy with the toll-free product. But I definitely know that if you're a local business or if you're a business that has local presence, whether that's through, chains or local, brick and mortar stores, having the ability to offer a local number and have that still be the local, have that be the look and feel of a local number is something that's really cool and kind of clears up a lot of the sort of mystery and oddball workarounds that I feel like a lot of providers were doing in the 10 DLC space. So that trend is really neat. I guess to counter that, carrier fees are definitely on the rise. So I think to some extent, like using messaging for the right use case definitely matters. But to counterbalance that, there's even better sort of data-driven messaging tool sets out there. You on a couple slides back, we're showing some of the newest innovative dashboards that Bandwidth has spun up, which have been absolutely amazing to work with. But I just think, the interplay between sort of outbound messaging and deep linking and calls to action within those messages can lead to some really powerful engagements that can now be tracked for their efficacy, up and down whatever flow you're trying to drive customers in as a business. So to some extent, a lot of this tech's been around for a long time with regards to like text messages, but the tooling and the sophistication and the interplay between text message and other applications is moving really, really quickly and helping at least us derive, incredible insights.
Yeah, that's great. So why does Qeepsake continue to invest in SMS for its use case? Sort of our founding story alluded to, we've been with SMS for a long time. Our goal is to be the home for every family story. And we like to sort of say that if we do our jobs right, we make journalers out of non-journalers. You can kind of think of like, what if you had a metaphorical little personal biographer that sat on your shoulder and was there to write down your family, memoir as it unfolded and just jotted down all the best moments as they happened.
Well, we think in a lot of ways the simplicity, the trust, the ability to sort of be right there in your phone where you have meaningful conversations with family members, colleagues, close friends. SMS is a great part of that offering for our use case. It makes it super simple and easy to save memories when they happen. But also too, like from a company perspective, if we can build the permission and trust to have an intimate conversation with our members, through a channel that they respect, then we think we can unlock a ton of value for both parties. So, we'll continue to invest, particularly in these cross-platform engagements where members can start, an interaction in SMS and potentially conclude that interaction there, or even be deep linked to our mobile app or our web app or our book product, and frankly, vice versa. So it's just been a great channel, and it's been really cool to see Bandwidth innovation, particularly on toll-free MMS and also in the dashboarding and tool sets that you guys have come up with over the last couple of years. The product has definitely advanced dramatically since we joined about 2 years ago.
That's great to hear. I don't think I have any more questions for Duncan. I know we've covered a lot of information today, but the key takeaways are that the messaging ecosystem has changed dramatically over a very short period of time. And we realize that it may be tough to navigate all of the requirements. We've talked about some of those, some of the requirements to register your campaigns, the surcharges, but make no mistake, messaging continues to be a trusted channel to build and deliver digital engagements, just as Duncan mentioned. We talked about the 3 messaging products in the marketplace and the differences between those. Our slide where we break out the 3 messaging products and we detail the best use cases for each. Along that line, your use case is really going to depend or dictate which messaging product is best for your business. And lastly, Bandwidth and our team are here to help you. So any questions, anything that you want to deep dive into, let us know. You can drop us a line on our website. You can ask your account manager if you are a customer or a partner, and we'd love to help you.
That's great. Thanks so much, Duncan and Stephanie. We're going to go ahead and move into a time of questions from you all. One that came through, as a business owner, what messaging product can I use to send messages in the US and Canada?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Any one of the 3 can be utilized to send messages in US and Canada. You could use short code, 10DLC, or toll-free.
Awesome. Another that we had come through, what is the state of Bandwidth's RCS offerings?
Another good question. We are, looking and doing some analysis and research, market competitive analysis in the marketplace to see, which way the carriers are going to go. I would say that RCS is definitely on our roadmap. So we are probably in the initial phases of analysis and research.
That's great. Another one that we had come through, what is, given the fact that all P2P messages go through some type of server or gateway, how do you differentiate between P2P and A2P?
Yeah, so the way the carriers define it now is that one-to-one messaging. So if I were to text Hannah, that is considered P2P, person-to-person messaging. All business messaging is considered application-to-person messaging. And the way it's differentiated downstream to our downstream partners is basically they go over 2 different binds. We have a P2P bind and we have an A2P bind.
That's great. Duncan, this is a question that came through for you. You mentioned the mobile and data attribution policies within Apple and Google, and that's kind of the reason you moved toward 10DLC. What data attribution policies were you referring to?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, no, actually, so we moved to toll-free long before that trend emerged. It was more in the last year with iOS 14.5 and 14.6 there's just more limitations when trying to sort of correlate data across platforms because Apple and Google are leaning more into their mobile app data privacy policies. And basically the main point there was just that it's become a lot more, I think, important for you as a company to have a direct line of communication with your members. And I think SMS as an industry trend will continue to benefit from that. Particularly if you think of like e-commerce or something where, most of the interactions between the brand and the consumer are transactional. So you're not like setting up an account and you're not having a long-standing back and forth. You're seeing a, let's say, call to action for some good that you might want to buy, and you're going to the website and buying that. If you want to develop a more long-term relationship for remarketing to that customer, something like SMS, I think, will benefit from that because Apple and Google are much more strict in how much information you can pass back and forth from like an advertisement to, a call to action in an app.
That's great. Thanks so much, Duncan. Another question, do toll-free and short code numbers have the same regulations as 10DLC products?
Yes. Yes, all three messaging products all have to adhere to the text messaging best practices and all of the carrier policies.
Amazing. Let's see, does 10DLC registration apply to both P2P and A2P?
So technically, campaign registration is just for A2P or application to person messaging. If a company has a true P2P, person-to-person use case, then they can apply to Bandwidth, who will then present it to our downstream partners and the carriers for review for a P2P exemption, which means it exempts them from paying the carrier surcharges.
That's great. Stephanie, someone's also asking about kind of how these things we're talking about would relate to European market. So what is the state of supporting SMS and MMS mobile numbers in Europe?
Yeah, so it's on our roadmap, just like our CS is. So the development teams here at Bandwidth are actively doing some analysis and research. We actually have an active A2P product for global messaging, and we're looking to really build that out. Probably have something ready for a larger implementation at the end of this year. But like I said, we currently do offer messaging internationally. And so if there's questions specifically about that, we can get you some more information.
That's great. Thanks so much, Stephanie. Let me see. And Stephanie, I'm not sure if this is related, but what can you tell us about how Bandwidth supports international DID and SMS, MMS support?
Well, I can talk a little bit about IA2P, but it's a little bit out of my wheelhouse. Not knowing specifically what they're looking for, I think that maybe if they reached out via our website, we could get them some better information.
That's awesome. Thank you. Let me see. I think we have one other question. All three messaging products, short code, 10DLC, and TF have reached in US and Canada destinations. What kind of tools does Bandwidth offer to see and track deliverability of SMS messages?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll go back to the couple of slides that I shared about the Bandwidth Insights product. That is our dashboard where customers can track DLRs, any kind of troubleshooting, if the message failed, why it failed. So I would direct the person who asked that question to our website to learn a little bit more about our dashboard and our Insights product.
That's great. Thanks so much, Stephanie. We're going to go ahead and I just want to thank everyone again for joining us. Thank you so much for your questions. If we did not get to it, I would encourage you all to follow up with your rep at Bandwidth or reach out to us at webinars@bandwidth.com, and we'd be happy to follow up with you. Like Stephanie said, there's some more specific resources that are available, and we would be happy to connect and share those with you as well. I also wanted to just mention again that you will be receiving a recording of today's webinar in the next couple of days, so you can go back and review anything that we discussed today. But again, wanted to thank Duncan and Stephanie for being with us today, and thank you all for taking time and joining us as well. We hope that you enjoyed the webinar and that it was informative for you. Thanks so much and have a great day.